Welcome to Life Stories, where we share heartfelt tales that inspire and transform. Today, we bring you the extraordinary journey of Charlotte, a wealthy heiress, and Anna, her humble maid, whose lives intertwine in unexpected ways. What begins as a cruel plan to humiliate Anna at a lavish party turns into a profound lesson in humility, kindness, and the true meaning of wealth. Join us as we uncover the transformation that changed Charlotte's life forever. Subscribe to our channel to begin today's story. And let's dive into this touching tale together. Charlotte Montgomery, at just 25, epitomized a life of luxury most could only dream of. Her sprawling estate, nestled in the sunlit hills of Beverly Hills, stood as a beacon of wealth and extravagance. The mansion, with its glistening glass facade and meticulously manicured gardens, was a testament to her family's success. To Charlotte, it wasn't just home, it was her domain, a fortress of privilege from which she ruled her carefully curated life. Her days were a symphony of opulence, orchestrated to the minute. Every aspect of Charlotte's appearance was painstakingly refined. Her wardrobe was an array of designer labels, and her accessories, like the gemstone-encrusted watch on her wrist, weren't just adornments, they were declarations of status. Yet, despite the material perfection surrounding her, Charlotte's heart felt curiously hollow. Her wealth had become a shield, isolating her from genuine human connection. Trust was a foreign concept in Charlotte's world. Every interaction was transactional, every relationship measured in its utility. It wasn't surprising, then, that she viewed Anna, her maid, as just another cog in the well-oiled machine of her household. Anna was everything Charlotte was not. At 30, she possessed a quiet grace, her beauty understated yet undeniable. Her hands bore the marks of honest labor, and her eyes reflected a warmth that came from a life rich in experiences. Even if not in wealth, despite her modest means, Anna seemed content, her humility and dedication shining through in every task she performed. Charlotte couldn't comprehend such simplicity. To her, Anna's joy in her work was perplexing, even contemptible. How could someone with so little find happiness? This paradox intrigued Charlotte, but it also stirred an envy she didn't fully understand. One particularly hot afternoon, Charlotte watched Anna from her bedroom window, her sharp blue eyes narrowing as they followed the maid's movements in the garden. Anna was diligently trimming the rose bushes, her brow glistening with sweat under the unforgiving sun. Her simple cotton dress clung to her as she worked, her beauty undiminished by the grime and effort. Charlotte sipped a glass of vintage wine, her lips curving into a sly smile as an idea began to take shape. Her birthday was approaching, a grand affair that was always the highlight of the social calendar. Every year, the city's most influential figures gathered to bask in Charlotte's glow, to marvel at her wealth, her connections, her carefully constructed perfection. But this year, she wanted something different. What if? Charlotte mused aloud to herself. I brought Anna to the party. The thought delighted her. It wasn't an act of generosity, it was a game. A carefully crafted ploy to humiliate Anna in front of the elite. Charlotte imagined the awkwardness, the stares, the muffled laughter. It would be the ultimate spectacle. And Charlotte would be at the center of it all. Her cleverness and audacity admired by everyone. Later that day, Charlotte stepped out into the blazing sun, her designer heels clicking against the marble steps as she approached Anna. The maid looked up, wiping her brow with a handkerchief. Good afternoon, Miss Charlotte. Anna greeted her, her voice as warm as her smile. Charlotte felt a pang of discomfort at Anna's genuine kindness, but she masked it with her practiced charm. Anna, Charlotte began, her voice dripping with false warmth. I've been watching you work, and I must say, I'm impressed. Your dedication deserves a reward. Anna's eyes widened in surprise. In all her years working for Charlotte's family, she had never received anything more than her paycheck. A reward. Miss Charlotte, she asked hesitantly. Yes. Charlotte continued, savoring the moment. Every year, I host a birthday party. It's the biggest event in the city, and I want you to attend as my special guest. Anna was stunned. Me? At your party? Of course. Charlotte said smoothly. You'll be my guest of honor. Don't worry about anything, I'll take care of the dress and everything else. What do you say? Anna hesitated. The idea of attending such a grand event was both thrilling and intimidating. She looked at her work-worn hands and thought about her modest wardrobe, unsure if she could fit into such a world. But Charlotte's insistence, her carefully calculated encouragement, eventually won her over. It would be an honor. Miss Charlotte, Anna finally said, a tentative smile on her face. Wonderful. Charlotte replied, placing a hand on Anna's shoulder. I'll make all the arrangements. Trust me, you'll have the time of your life. As Charlotte walked away, her heels echoing on the stone path, a malicious grin spread across her face. The game was set, and she could already taste the satisfaction of her plan unfolding. Back in the cool confines of her mansion, Charlotte poured herself another glass of wine, her mind racing with the details. She called her assistant, Chloe, instructing her to find the most garish, ill-fitting dress imaginable. Make it impossible to ignore, she said, her voice brimming with excitement. Meanwhile, Anna returned to her work, unaware of the storm brewing. She thought of the invitation as a rare glimpse into a world so different from her own, an opportunity to experience something extraordinary. For Charlotte, however, it was all a carefully crafted performance, a cruel joke designed to reinforce her dominance and superiority. Little did she know, the night she had planned for humiliation would become a night of profound revelations, transforming both her and Anna's lives in ways she could never have anticipated. The days leading up to Charlotte's birthday were a flurry of preparation. The mansion buzzed with activity as staff polished every surface and perfected every detail. Invitations had gone out weeks before, but Charlotte still reveled in the anticipation, picturing the sea of influential faces gathering to celebrate her. This year's party wasn't just another social event, it was her chance to outshine even her most glamorous peers. In her room, Charlotte sat at her vanity, the golden glow of her chandelier reflecting off the ornate mirror. With her phone pressed to her ear, she spoke to Chloe, her trusted assistant, who had been tasked with finding the perfect dress for Anna. Make it as garish as possible, Charlotte instructed. Something bright, tacky, and completely inappropriate for an event like this. And make sure it's the wrong size, preferably too big. I want her to stand out. But for all the wrong reasons. Understood, Miss Charlotte, Chloe replied, her tone professional despite the strange request. Good. Drop it off tomorrow morning. I'll take care of the rest. As the call ended, Charlotte leaned back in her chair, her mind playing out the scenes she anticipated. She could already hear the whispers, see the amused smirks, and feel the attention of the room centering on her as the architect of this spectacle. When the dress arrived the next day, Charlotte couldn't help but laugh. It was perfect. A garish lime green monstrosity with a puffy skirt and oversized bows. It looked like something from a poorly staged school play. She carefully placed it in a garment bag and called for Anna. Anna arrived promptly, her hands nervously clasped in front of her. Anna, Charlotte said with a smile that barely concealed her amusement. I've got the dress for you. It's custom-picked for the occasion. I think you'll look unforgettable. Anna hesitated, her eyes flickering to the garment bag. Thank you, Miss Charlotte. That's very kind of you. Don't mention it, Charlotte said smoothly. You deserve it. The party is tomorrow night. I'll have a car pick you up and bring you to the venue. Anna nodded, clutching the bag as if it were a precious gift. She had no idea that it was a weapon in Charlotte's cruel game. The next evening, the grand event unfolded in a way that only Charlotte could orchestrate. The venue, a luxurious hotel overlooking the sparkling Pacific Ocean, was transformed into a wonderland of lights, music, and decadence. Guests arrived in an endless parade of sleek cars, their designer gowns and tailored suits gliding past the red carpet that stretched to the grand entrance. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the ballroom, where tables were adorned with fresh flowers and champagne flutes gleamed in the light. Conversations buzzed as the city's elite mingled, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. Charlotte arrived fashionably late, stepping out of her car in a gown that shimmered like liquid gold. Cameras flashed as she posed gracefully, every movement calculated for maximum impact. But her moment of triumph wasn't complete, not yet. Soon, Anna's car pulled up to the venue. When the door opened, the sight that met the gathered guests was exactly as Charlotte had envisioned. Anna, dressed in the garish green monstrosity, stepped out timidly, her nervous smile faltering under the barrage of camera flashes. For a moment, the crowd was silent, stunned by the sheer audacity of the outfit. Then, like a ripple in a pond, the laughter began. It started softly, murmurs and giggles spreading through the crowd, before escalating into outright chuckles. Anna, blinded by the flashes and overwhelmed by the attention, stumbled slightly as she exited the car. Charlotte, standing nearby, extended a hand to steady her. The gesture might have seemed kind to onlookers, but it was part of Charlotte's plan, a way to amplify the humiliation. "Ladies and gentlemen," Charlotte said with a practiced smile, loud enough for the surrounding guests to hear, "allow me to introduce my special guest for the evening, Anna, my maid. She's the one who keeps my home and gardens so beautiful. Isn't she just delightful?" The crowd chuckled, their laughter polite but tinged with condescension. Anna smiled nervously, clearly unsure of how to respond. Inside the ballroom, the contrast between Anna and the glittering crowd became even starker. The other women's gowns were sleek and elegant, their jewelry subtle yet undeniably luxurious. Anna's dress, by comparison, was a garish beacon of awkwardness, its puffed skirt and neon hue clashing with the sophisticated surroundings. Charlotte introduced Anna to group after group, each interaction more uncomfortable than the last. The guests, sensing the dynamic, played along, peppering Anna with questions designed to highlight her discomfort. "So, Anna," one man asked with a smirk, "what do you think of the latest trends in AI?" Anna, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, stammered, I don't really know much about that, sir. But if it helps people, I think it's a good thing." The group laughed, their amusement at her naivety barely concealed. Charlotte watched it all unfold with satisfaction. Her plan was working perfectly. Anna was the object of ridicule, the centerpiece of a cruel joke that elevated Charlotte's status as the clever and daring host. But as the night wore on, a subtle shift began to take place. While Anna struggled to navigate the unfamiliar world of luxury and excess, her genuine nature and quiet strength began to shine through. And somewhere in the crowd, an unexpected ally was watching, ready to turn the night in a direction Charlotte never anticipated. As the evening progressed, the air in the ballroom seemed to grow heavier with a mix of champagne and condescension. Charlotte was in her element, gliding between groups, orchestrating the social hierarchy like a seasoned conductor. She had positioned herself at the top, and Anna, in her garish lime green dress, at the bottom. To Charlotte, it was all going exactly as planned, but not everyone was amused by the spectacle. William Montgomery, the legendary investor and philanthropist whose presence commanded respect, had been observing the interactions from the sidelines. His sharp eyes missed nothing, the nervous glances, the forced smiles, the cruel undertones masked as playful banter. He had arrived at the party expecting the usual superficial exchanges of wealth and influence. Instead, he found himself intrigued by the quiet strength of the maid who had become the evening's reluctant centerpiece. As Charlotte ushered Anna toward a new group, William stepped forward. His tall frame and silver hair exuded authority. and his approach caused the surrounding chatter to quiet. "Charlotte," he greeted warmly, though his gaze flickered to Anna. "I see you've brought an interesting guest tonight." Charlotte's smile faltered slightly but quickly returned. Polished and ready. "Ah, Mr. Montgomery. Always a pleasure. Yes. This is Anna. My maid. I thought it would be fun to give her a glimpse into our world. Something she'd never experience otherwise." William's expression didn't change, but there was a glimmer of something in his eyes, disapproval. Perhaps. Or curiosity. "How generous of you," he said evenly. Turning to Anna. "And how are you finding the evening?" Anna, still flushed from the earlier interactions, met his gaze hesitantly. There was a kindness in his eyes that steadied her nerves. "It's very different from anything I've known, sir," she replied honestly. "Different? Indeed," William said, his tone thoughtful. "Sometimes, stepping into a new world can teach us a great deal about others and ourselves." Charlotte's laughter broke the moment. "Oh, Mr. Montgomery. Always so philosophical. Anna's just here to enjoy the party, aren't you?" Anna nodded. But William's attention lingered on her. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "It's a brave thing, stepping into a room where you're not quite sure you belong. But remember, belonging isn't always about fitting in. Sometimes it's about standing tall, no matter where you are." Anna blinked, her lips parting in surprise. No one had spoken to her like that before. There was no mockery in his tone, no hidden agenda, just sincerity. Before Charlotte could whisk Anna away, William straightened and addressed the surrounding guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you don't mind if I borrow our guest of honor for a moment." He gestured toward the stage at the front of the ballroom. Charlotte's carefully constructed confidence began to waver. "Mr. Montgomery," she said, her voice overly bright. "Surely you don't mean to put Anna in the spotlight?" William's smile was calm, but his words carried weight. "I believe the spotlight is exactly where she belongs." The crowd murmured with interest as William led Anna to the stage. Charlotte, frozen in place, could only watch as her plans unraveled before her eyes. When they reached the stage, William took the microphone. The room fell silent, the guests' curiosity palpable. "Tonight," he began, "we gather to celebrate Charlotte's birthday and the incredible achievements of our community. But I'd like to take a moment to introduce someone extraordinary, someone whose impact extends far beyond this ballroom." The murmurs grew louder, confusion spreading through the crowd. Anna stood beside him, visibly nervous but holding her ground. "This," William continued, his voice steady, "is Anna. Some of you may see her as Charlotte's maid, but she is far more than that. She is the Silent Samaritan." The room erupted in whispers. The Silent Samaritan, a mysterious philanthropist who had quietly donated millions to causes ranging from education to healthcare, was a name known to everyone in the room. But no one had ever guessed their identity. Charlotte's face drained of color. "What is he talking about?" she whispered to herself. William turned to Anna, his expression filled with admiration. "Anna has spent years dedicating her wealth and her life to helping those in need. She chose to live simply, away from the spotlight, while quietly transforming countless lives. Tonight, it is my honor to reveal her as the Silent Samaritan, a true example of humility, generosity, and strength." The crowd burst into applause, the sound growing louder as the weight of the revelation sank in. Anna, who had spent the evening as the subject of ridicule, now stood as the center of admiration and respect. Charlotte, unable to process what was happening, took a step back. Her carefully crafted game had turned into a nightmare. The guests who had laughed at Anna earlier were now flocking to her, eager to shake her hand and thank her for her contributions. And Charlotte, for the first time in her life, felt small. The room buzzed with energy as the applause for Anna gradually subsided, replaced by a hum of excited conversation. The crowd, which had earlier dismissed her as a mere maid, now regarded her with reverence and awe. Guests approached the stage in clusters, eager to shake her hand and offer words of gratitude. Charlotte, standing on the sidelines, was frozen in place. Her meticulously planned evening had unraveled into something she couldn't control. The smug confidence she had carried all night was now a heavy weight pressing on her chest. Her mind raced, trying to comprehend what had just happened. Anna, the silent Samaritan? How could this simple woman, clad in that ridiculous dress Charlotte had chosen to mock her, be the philanthropist whose generosity had captured the admiration of an entire nation? William Montgomery stepped aside, allowing Anna to address the crowd. For a moment, she hesitated, her fingers gripping the microphone as her eyes scanned the room. She seemed so different now, not the timid maid Charlotte had sought to humiliate, but a woman of quiet authority. "Thank you," Anna began, her voice clear but laced with emotion. "I never expected to stand here tonight. And certainly not under these circumstances. I've spent years working quietly, believing that actions, not words, are what truly matter. But tonight has shown me that sometimes, speaking out is just as important." The crowd listened intently, their expressions a mix of admiration and guilt. Some of the same people who had laughed at her earlier now hung on her every word. "I chose to live simply," Anna continued, "because I believe that wealth is not measured by what you have but by what you can give. For me, working as a maid has been a way to stay grounded, to remind myself of the dignity in honest labor and the value of humility." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Charlotte's throat tightened. Humility, dignity, these were concepts she had never truly considered. Her entire life had been a performance, a constant struggle to outshine and dominate. Now, in the glow of Anna's authenticity, her own existence felt painfully hollow. As Anna finished speaking, the crowd erupted into another round of applause. Guests approached her, showering her with gratitude and respect. Ms. Marion, a renowned actress, stepped forward. "Your donation saved the arts center in my hometown," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I can never thank you enough." Another guest, a tech entrepreneur, added, "Your contributions to clean energy research are groundbreaking. The world owes you a debt of gratitude." Charlotte stood apart, watching as Anna was celebrated. The praise that Charlotte had always craved was now being heaped upon the very person she had sought to ridicule. For the first time, she felt truly invisible. Anna, ever gracious, accepted the compliments with humility. She turned to William, who gave her an encouraging nod. Then, as if drawn by an invisible force, she began making her way toward Charlotte. Charlotte's heart raced as Anna approached. She wanted to shrink away, to disappear into the crowd. But Anna's presence was commanding. And before Charlotte could move, Anna was standing before her. "Charlotte," Anna said gently, her voice steady but not unkind, "I'm sure tonight hasn't gone the way you planned." Charlotte swallowed hard, her eyes darting away. I didn't know," she stammered. Anna placed a hand on Charlotte's shoulder, a gesture so kind it nearly broke her. "You didn't," Anna said softly. "And while I can't condone what you tried to do tonight, I also understand why. The world you've grown up in has taught you that power and status are the only things that matter. But that doesn't have to define you." Charlotte blinked, struggling to process Anna's words. No one had ever spoken to her like this before, with honesty, but also compassion. "You have so much potential, Charlotte," Anna continued. "You can use your privilege to make a real difference, to create something meaningful. But it starts with humility, with recognizing that our worth isn't tied to our wealth but to how we treat others." Tears pricked the corners of Charlotte's eyes. For years, she had built walls around herself, convinced that vulnerability was weakness. But in that moment, those walls began to crack. I don't know how," Charlotte admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Anna smiled. a genuine smile that radiated warmth. You start by learning, by listening, and by trying. It's not easy, but it's worth it. As the room slowly returned to its usual hum of conversation, William approached the two women. "Charlotte," he said, his tone firm but not harsh. "Tonight could be the turning point of your life if you let it." Charlotte nodded, her voice trembling as she replied, "I want to try." For the first time in her life, Charlotte felt something unfamiliar, a sense of hope. Not tied to material success but to the possibility of becoming someone better. The party continued to swirl around them. But for Charlotte, the world seemed to have narrowed to just this moment. Anna and William stood beside her, offering not judgment but an invitation to change, a lifeline she hadn't realized she needed. For the first time in her life, Charlotte didn't feel like the center of attention. But she also didn't feel hollow. Instead, she felt something stirring inside her. Fragile but undeniable, a yearning for something real. Anna extended her hand, her eyes kind but firm. "The first step, Charlotte, is recognizing the need to change. The second is acting on it. If you're truly ready, I'm willing to help." Charlotte hesitated, her manicured fingers hovering above Anna's calloused ones. This wasn't the kind of help she was accustomed to, transactional, superficial. This was deeper, scarier, and infinitely more meaningful. Finally, she placed her hand in Anna's. "I am ready," she said softly, but with conviction. The gesture didn't go unnoticed. Guests who had been watching the evening unfold whispered amongst themselves. Some were skeptical, others moved. But one thing was clear, this was a moment no one would forget. William, ever the steady presence, clapped a hand on Charlotte's shoulder. "Good. Growth is never easy, Charlotte. But it's the most worthwhile endeavor you'll ever undertake." He glanced at Anna, his eyes twinkling with pride. You couldn't ask for a better guide. The rest of the evening passed in a blur for Charlotte. The laughter and glamour she had once thrived on now felt distant, unimportant. Instead, she found herself drawn to quieter conversations, listening as Anna spoke with the guests who had once dismissed her. The way Anna carried herself, with humility yet strength, left Charlotte in awe. Toward the end of the night, Anna stood on the balcony overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The waves below crashed against the cliffs, their rhythm steady and eternal. Charlotte hesitated at the doorway, unsure if she should intrude. But Anna turned and smiled, beckoning her over. "The ocean always reminds me of perspective," Anna said as Charlotte joined her. "It's vast, powerful, constant. Our worries, our successes, they're just ripples in something so much bigger." Charlotte leaned on the railing, staring out at the dark waters. "I've spent my whole life trying to prove myself," she admitted. "Trying to be the best, the brightest, the most admired. But now, I don't even know what that means anymore." Anna nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "It's not uncommon, Charlotte. Many people measure their worth by external things, money, power, approval. But true worth comes from within, from the impact we have on others and the love we give and receive." Charlotte sighed. "I've been so selfish. I don't know how to change that." "You already have," Anna said gently. "The fact that you're asking these questions, that you're willing to try, that's the beginning." For a long moment, they stood in silence, the sound of the waves filling the space between them. Then, Anna spoke again, her tone lighter. "Tomorrow morning, why don't we start small? Come to the house early, and we'll clean the garden together. There's something deeply therapeutic about working with your hands, seeing the tangible results of your effort." Charlotte blinked in surprise. "You want me to clean?" Anna smiled. "Why not? Honest work has its own dignity, remember? Besides, it'll be good for you to see things from a different perspective." To her own astonishment, Charlotte found herself nodding. "Okay, I'll do it." The party began to wind down, and guests departed with the memory of the night etched firmly in their minds. The story of Anna, the silent Samaritan, and Charlotte's transformation would spread like wildfire, becoming a tale that inspired conversations across the city. When Charlotte returned to her empty mansion later that night, she felt a strange sense of peace. Her home, usually a source of pride and loneliness, now seemed like a place of potential. Tomorrow, she would step into a new chapter, one filled with uncertainty but also hope. And for the first time in her life, Charlotte was ready to embrace it. As the sun rose the next morning, Charlotte arrived at Anna's small home, ready to begin a journey she never thought she'd take. Working alongside Anna in the garden, she felt the weight of her old life lifting with every stroke of the rake and every seed planted. For the first time, she understood the dignity in simplicity and the power of connection. Over the following months, Charlotte dedicated herself to change, helping those in need, learning humility, and building genuine relationships. The story of her transformation and Anna's quiet heroism spread far and wide, inspiring countless others to reflect on their own values. This tale is a reminder that true wealth lies not in what we own, but in how we touch the lives of others. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Life Stories for more inspiring and heartfelt tales. See you in the next video.